Listen, it might not seem obvious right now, but 99% of people are literally becoming more retarded every single day because of all these small habits and things that they do throughout the day. Like they wake up, immediately check their phone, get a ton of dopamine, then maybe, they go to work, they scroll a little in the breaks, they sit on Facebook, whatever, then they get home, they scroll their phone some more, they watch a shitty Netflix show, and then guess what? They finish off with a little more doom scrolling before they go to bed. And when you do this over and over again every single day, it's literally only a matter of time before you actually end up retarded. We already have studies coming out on the effects of short form content on attention span, cognitive function, focus, like all that stuff. And it literally shows that you literally become dumber. You get worse attention span, worse ability to focus, and like your brain just doesn't work that well. But like, did you really need a study to know that? So here's the antidote to becoming retarded, how you're actually gonna end up as the 1% of people in the near future that's actually gonna be able to sit down and read 20-30 pages in a book without feeling like it's the hardest thing they've done all year. Step one, don't be an NPC. Most people, they live their life on this complete autopilot. They go through the same routine every single day, they do the same stuff every single day, and they don't really engage in anything that actually challenges their brain or just requires it to actually work. It's exactly like with your muscles. If you don't use them, you lose them. Like that's pretty much number one law of nature, and the same goes for your brain. But most people don't really think about their brain that way because it's not something that you can really see or like feel or notice in your everyday life. Like I said, people just live on complete autopilot mode. The best thing they probably got going for them is that job. Hopefully people are getting some stimulation, they're actually doing something. But other than that, they just doom scroll, they watch Netflix, they do all these autopilot NPC activities, never really do anything crazy. Maybe they go to the gym 3 times a week, something like that. And when you just do this year after year, no wonder your brain literally becomes dumber, not being able to focus and actually be used as it's meant to be. And like, this is literally the NPC life, just mindlessly consuming, just passively going throughout the day, scrolling, not really having any original thought, giving your brain any time to actually think an original thought. And if you ask me, like, that's a no bueno. I don't want to end up like that. So this is the steps that I'm literally taking to try to not end up becoming literally retarded from doom scrolling. So before I get to that, I just want to say that I feel like the flex, whatever you want to say, in the future is not gonna be if you got $1 million in your bank account, but it's actually gonna be if you can sit down and actually read 20 pages without picking up your phone, if you can watch a high quality movie without scrolling through TikTok, if you can sit down and eat a meal without watching YouTube, if you can just sit and enjoy nature, sit with your friends and family without constantly feeling like you have to be online, you have to get some dopamine from all these things. Like, you get the picture. And what it's basically about is just doing shit in your life, having hobbies, using your brain and body, and just, basically like the opposite of being an NPC, the opposite of living on autopilot, trying new things, doing stuff that actually requires your brain to work, being interested in topics, studying stuff like that. And even before all that, it's just about recognizing that doom scrolling and all these things that we got going in the modern world are horrible for you. So if you already know that, since you probably clicked on this video, well, you're already ahead of most people, because most people, they don't even think about it. They feel like it's just normal life to be scrolling on their phone for 5 hours every single day. So the first thing that you gotta know is it's about being a Renaissance man, a modern Renaissance man. You need to start living like Leonardo da Vinci, always using your brain, having a million different things going on, having all these hobbies, things you're interested in, experimenting with stuff, and just, actually living life. Being a modern Renaissance man is just the opposite of being a doom scroller, just sitting there passively scrolling. And like, a lot of people would tell you to avoid having multiple interests because, well, then you can't give 100% of your effort to all these things. And you hear this quote about the man who chases two rabbits catches none and all that stuff. Like, I feel like that is bullshit. Leonardo da Vinci was literally the best painter in the world, and that wasn't even his main like interest or thing. He did it a lot and spent a lot of time on it, but I feel like he was more interested in science, engineering, stuff like that. And yet, like I said, he ended up as the best painter in the world. Like, you can have multiple different interests, and I feel like that's just so much more fun than just having one thing going. And obviously, like, it's not about doing a ton of different things because you gotta end up being the number one at all of them. Obviously, you can't do that. If you want to end up as the absolute best, you have to dedicate, most of the time towards that one thing. but it's just about doing it for its own sake, just because you want to get better at stuff, because you want to use your brain, be interested in things, and just because it's the antidote to being an NPC that's literally gonna end up retarded from doom scrolling. And I ain't telling you to start, painting like Leonardo da Vinci, but try to like learn a new language, play a new sport, play an instrument, try to like run a business. If you wanna make YouTube videos, like do that, whatever you're interested in, just try to do a lot of different things, like have multiple skills developing at the same time, and just be interested in a lot of different things. So before you can actually do all that, you gotta implement these action steps that I'm gonna be going over, so you actually have time to do all this stuff, and you actually cut out the bad habits. And obviously, number one, like you probably guessed it, no doom scrolling. And this is, like I said, this is literally the most important thing you can do, because first of all, it destroys your mind. We have studies, like I just talked about, that show doom scrolling and all this short form content is horrible for you. But second of all, it's probably what you spend a lot of time on. So when you quit it, you're gonna actually have a lot of time to pursue all these other hobbies, interests, whatever. Time to learn an instrument, learn a language, start a business, whatever. So the good news is that it isn't actually complicated to stop doom scrolling. It's literally just about putting the phone down, starting small. Like Lao Tzu said, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. You don't have to, throw your phone out or delete all the apps. It's just about starting small. For example, when you go to bed, leave your phone in another room. Maybe like tell yourself, I'm not going to use my phone 1 hour before bed. Maybe you say, well, I'm going to try to go for a walk without my phone. I'm going to try to go to the bathroom without my phone, and then just gradually adding more and more things onto it. And before you know it, your screen time is 1 hour. Another thing that actually really helped me not use my phone that much is this device called the Brick. I'm going to put it up on the screen. It's this little thing with like an NFC chip inside that you scan, and then it blocks out the apps that you select, and then you actually have to physically scan the thing again before you can actually get back to the app. So compared to like just normal screen time settings, you can always just click the easy button, like bypass or whatever it says, and then boom, you're back to scrolling. But this thing, like there's nothing like you can do if you like scan it, you go for a walk or you go somewhere out to dinner or something, like there's nothing you can do to actually get back to the app unless you scan the thing. But if you left it at home, there's nothing you can do. So that's actually a thing that works really well. If you feel like you need it, it's something you can buy. It's pretty cheap. So yeah, I can't stress it enough. This is literally the number one thing you gotta do to be able to think clearly again, get creative, do the stuff that you actually want to do, is just to quit doom scrolling. Another thing is to read more books. And no, I'm not talking about Twitter threads, I'm not talking about articles, I'm not talking about whatever, I'm talking about actual books, long form books, books that take weeks or even months to finish. This is literally what is gonna cure your brain rot. It's the exact opposite of all these 30-second shallow emotional roller coaster videos that you see on Instagram, TikTok, whatever. It's 1,000 pages where you're getting involved in the story, you're learning about the characters. It takes like I said, weeks or months to finish it. You become invested in this story. You need to like focus, use your brain to like connect the dots, like okay, this is the character from here, and this is story that's going on. Like there's so many processes in the brain going on when you actually read books. It's such a golden habit. Like you need to start reading books if you aren't already. Also, people who read have been shown to have better vocabularies, better critical thinking skills, better able to read people emotionally, which is just an insane skill to have in terms of like business, all that kind of stuff, marketing, whatever. And also it's just gonna help you with being able to just sit down and focus for hours on end, because if you can sit and read the same book for an hour, obviously you're also going to be able to sit down and work for an hour. And especially fiction books, that is literally what I would recommend starting out reading. You hear a lot of people talking about all these self-help books and to learn about business and psychology and deep work and whatever, all that stuff. But I would actually recommend starting out reading fiction books. There's just something special about it. The Count of Monte Cristo, Lord of the Rings, Picture of Dorian Gray. There's so many also, like Fyodor Dostoevsky. I haven't read his book yet, but I hear they're great. Ernest Hemingway. Stuff like that is what I would recommend starting out reading. But again, like the book that gets you to read is going to be the best book. So if you want to start out reading, self-help books, do that. If you want to read, whatever, something else, do that. Just get into the habit of reading. And again, like I said earlier, it's about just starting small. Try to say to yourself, now that I put my phone out of the bedroom, I'm gonna maybe pick up a book instead and then read 10 pages before I go to bed. And then boom, like you gradually build on that, increase the duration, increase the pages that you read, and before you know it, you're reading 25 to 50 pages a day. And that is literally how you fix your brain. Another thing that is insane that you gotta do is to go for long walks without your phone. Going for just these long, slow walks without your phone, without nothing, just listening to nature is one of the best things that you can do to actually get your brain churning, get out these thoughts and be able to think better. All of the world's greatest thinkers were literally walkers, Leonardo da Vinci, Nietzsche, Steve Jobs, Darwin. Like there's so many people, Albert Einstein, for example, all these people talked about how walking is such a great tool to be able to think better and, come up with ideas and all that kind of stuff. Movement and thought are just deeply linked. There's just something happening when you're out walking, and we see this in science as well. You can see, like, if you measure the brain waves, brain activity, whatever you want to call it, that when you're out walking, there's just more activity going on in the brain. And this is also another reason why you're living on autopilot, like this NPC life. You're never giving your brain time to just be with itself, be with its own thoughts, and just do nothing. And you do that when you go out for a walk. That's just nothing. Like, you just allow your thoughts to come naturally. The only thing you can look at the trees, you can listen to the birds, whatever, but it's just you and your thoughts. And it doesn't just have to be these walks. It can be a lot of other stuff. It can be just driving without listening to music, meditating. I'm gonna get into that in a second, but yeah, get into the habit of just going for walks without your phone. Number 3, 4, whatever we are getting at, is that you actually need to challenge your brain. Like I said, most people they mindlessly just consume, passively go on with their life. They don't use their brain, they don't do anything. Now that you've actually started reading books, going for walks, putting down your phone, you're gonna have all this brain power. You're gonna be able to think, and you gotta use that on something. So do something challenging with your brain. Like I said, try to learn a new language. You want to play an instrument if you're interested in like topics, science, health, food. That's kind of what I'm interested in. Like, read studies, try to learn about it, like put the pieces together. That is how you use your brain. That is how you challenge it. And it can also just be more basic things, like playing chess, playing cards, arguing with people, discussing different topics, like whatever. There's so many ways that you can just challenge your brain, like reading books, like I just touched on, making YouTube videos, writing articles, learning how to code. There's so many things that you can pick up if you're interested in them. And this also goes hand in hand with my next point, which is to have a fucking hobby. Like, most people, they don't have any kind of hobby. Like, if you ask them, like, what's your hobby, they're probably gonna say, well, I don't know, like, I go to the gym 3 times a week, 4 times, like, whatever. But that is just not cutting it. And once again with this, like, the problem is the phone. People used to be big into hobbies, but now we have the phones. Like, whenever we got 5 minutes, like, we just pick up the phone, like, we start scrolling. We sit and watch YouTube all day, we watch Netflix. Like, there's no time to actually do like these small hobbies. So when you actually cut out the phone, you're gonna start having more time for these things that are actually gonna be fun. It can be the things I mentioned earlier, playing chess, these like little more challenging things, but it can also be more basic stuff, like if there's a sport you're interested in, playing that, maybe trying out a new sport, skiing, surfing, playing basketball, whatever. Like, there's so many things in life that you can do just because they're fun. And it's just about, doing cool shit. It's my whole point with this video. It's just about putting the phone down and actually just doing cool shit, starting to actually live life more instead of just scrolling Instagram, watching other people live their life. And the last thing I want to touch on is meditation and just the act of doing nothing. This is like the ultimate test of whether your brain is fried or not. I remember that, like, the first time I tried meditation, and I picked this 10-minute timer, and thought, well, it's gonna be easy, like 10 minutes, why shouldn't I be able to do that? And literally, I didn't even get to 5 minutes before I picked up the phone. I said, fuck this shit, close the app, because your brain is just not used to just sitting there, darkness, just with its own thoughts. But it is, the ultimate cure to brain rot. Once again, it's pretty much the exact opposite of doom scrolling. One side, there's just tons of stimulation. On the other side, there's nothing. And again, there's many forms of meditation. You don't have to, download an app and sit like this and, cross your legs and whatever and sit and meditate like a monk. It can also just be, going out for a tanning session, laying 1 hour in the sun without listening to music, without watching videos or doing anything, just sitting there, you and your thoughts, doing absolutely nothing. And again, you can also like go for a walk, meditation. It doesn't really matter what you choose. What's really just important is that you just have some time throughout the day where it's just you and your thoughts and nothing else. So like the next time you're at a bus stop, instead of picking up your phone, scrolling Instagram or putting some music in your ears, like just stand there for 5 minutes, look at the cars going by, just think about the present moment. And I know this sounds like some kind of monk shit, and yeah, like I guess it is, but I'm literally saying like it's really freaking important, and it is how you actually fix your brain. And yeah, like that is pretty much it. The whole message was just with this video is literally just put the phone down, start actually doing some stuff, challenging your brain, actually using it. That is how you end up, not becoming retarded. Most people that are just going down this slippery slope, whatever you want to say, and it's gonna be hard to even come back when you don't even think about it, because people don't think about doom scrolling as this bad thing, or they just think, oh, I don't care, I like it, whatever. But yeah, just try to adopt the Renaissance way of life, being interested in all this stuff, is probably gonna be a lot healthier than scrolling your phone. That's just it. But that's pretty much it. That's just my thoughts, obviously. Like, you can go back to doom scrolling if you want. But yeah, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, all that stuff. Yeah, and I'll see you in the next one.